put in a few more rows just so you can see that it does kind of start shaping up, and you can have your little kind of square if you want. And this is basically a you can call it a fabric of single crochet stitches. Now that's kind of pretty, and it's basically all knots. But if you want to add in what we call ribbing, you can definitely do that by just putting in the hook in a different loop. So you would get something like that. So you can see how you have this kind of ribbing quality. So that's just the flat crochet, and then these are ribbed. Now you can do ribbing in a couple of ways. Some ribbing in here, but first I'm just going to do a little reminder for that turning chain. Right, so we're going to flip it over. Now we can still see our V's, and it's always a good idea every now and then to count them out to make sure that you're not increasing your work by maybe accidentally putting in an extra stitch. That means your work would kind of maybe start going like this and get longer, or decreasing, meaning that you forget a stitch and maybe your work starts getting smaller. So I checked, and we have 10 stitches, and we're going to take a look at these V's. Okay, so you can see right here that we actually have a loop that's a front loop right here and a back loop. So again, front and back, front and back. And you can choose which one you want to put the hook through. So if you want to put the hook through the front, you would separate the V. Oh, see if we can get some focus. Separate the V and put it through just like you would have put through the 2. Okay, so that's with the 2. But here's with the front loop only. And then you would proceed as you would making a stitch, okay? Or you can put it in the back loop. So here's that front, there's the V, here's the front loop, and we're gonna put it in the back. And then we would proceed with our stitch. Now they're gonna make different types of looks. And if you pick one, unless you're going for a specific look, you're going to want to stick with the post or the loop, the front or the back, that you chose for your previous rows. So meaning if you go with the back loop when you turn your work, you should stay with the back loop. Or if you chose the front loop, right, then you could stay with the front loop on your next rows. So I'm going to choose the front row. It's a little easier. And I'm going to find that very first stitch. Remember that it gets a little messy up here. But so that's actually our second stitch. And here's our first. So I'm gonna bring this in under. Whoops, and you can see I've caught both of them. So I'm gonna pull out, and that first stitch can always be a little bit of a problem, but here we go. So then I'm going to do my yarn over and pull through just like we did before, and yarn over again and pull through. Okay, now I'm finding that next stitch, there it is, and I'm just going to get that front part. So instead of going under the 2, I'm just going in that first loop. Okay. And then I proceed with my stitch as usual. Okay, next stitch. Again, we can see where this loop is coming from, so that's our next stitch. And we're coming in just in that front one. And I've got our 2 loops. Okay. And again. So this is just the front loop of each stitch. There we go. It is a little difficult sometimes, like And this is more advanced once you get used to just making your stitch, right, with putting it under the 2 to make your regular stitch. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's really much different at the beginning, but it really makes a difference after you make a couple of rows. So I'm going to get down to the end, turn it, and start a couple of stitches on the next row. So I've turned it, and now I'm going to go for that first stitch again right here, right there, and I'm going to again choose which one I want to do, but I'm going to stick with that front one. It just makes the work look better. And there. And we just proceed as usual. Okay, reset. Alright, so then I'm going into our next stitch, taking only that first one and continuing. Okay, next stitch, taking just that first one in the V. Okay, so just like we were doing in the last row, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more just so you can see how the ribbing can start to form. But this one isn't as dramatic as the beginning of that little purse that I showed you, but you can see where here are the regular stitches, and then here are the ribs that kind of go in between. Okay, so you can see that, those 2 lines right there. So you can get that kind of effect if you stick with the one side. So I've put in a few more. So we can see our regular stitches. Then we went to front post. Right. Then back post, which gives you those more dramatic ribbings. And then here I went back and forth just to show you that sometimes it's better to just stick with one unless you're going for a specific look. So again, these were back and forth from the front and then turning and doing another row in the back loop, and then these were all in the back loop, and then these were all in the front loop. Okay. And you notice mine is kind of shrinking a little bit because I tend to start pulling my stitches tight, so it's really important to remember to get consistency, meaning kind of the same tension throughout if you can. Alright, so that's how you do ribbing.